"You've seen me undressed. Now you must marry me or they'll punish us both," said the Apache girl. The sun had been beating down on the desert for hours, and the traveler was beginning to feel the strain of walking under the harsh light. His clothes were dusty, his water bottle almost empty, and his feet ached from the uneven ground. He had been traveling alone for days, moving carefully between the rocky hills and sparse patches of scrub, trying to follow a trail that he thought might lead to shelter. He had never expected the desert to be so wide and empty, and each step seemed to stretch endlessly into the horizon. The traveler was not from the region. He came from a city far away, where streets were crowded and shadows were few. Here he felt as though he had stepped into another world, one where the rules of life were written by nature itself, not by humans. As he continued walking, clouds began to gather unexpectedly. At first they were small and white, floating lazily across the sky. But within an hour they had thickened into dark, heavy shapes. A sudden chill swept over the land, and he realized a storm was coming. The wind picked up, carrying with it a fine spray of sand that stung his skin. The traveler looked around desperately. There were no trees, no caves, no signs of human habitation. Panic crept into his mind. He knew he could not survive out in the open during a storm like this. He needed shelter and fast. In the distance, he spotted a cluster of structures made from wood and stone, partially hidden among low hills. Relief surged through him. He hurried toward them, feeling the wind push against him, slowing his pace. As he approached, he saw smoke rising from a small fire near the center of the settlement. Someone was home. He could not tell who, but the sight of the fire gave him hope. Perhaps they could offer him food, water, or at least a place to stay until the storm passed. He arrived at the edge of the settlement just as the first drops of rain began to fall. The structures were simple but strong, built to withstand the desert winds and rains. He stepped closer, hoping to call out politely, but he paused. A young woman was there, arranging some bundles of food near the fire. She had long, dark hair and sharp, careful movements. When she noticed him, she froze, her eyes widening. It was clear from her expression that seeing him was not something she had expected, and something about her reaction made him hesitate. He raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "I mean no harm," he said in a calm voice. "I was caught in the storm and needed shelter." The woman said nothing at first. She looked around quickly, then gestured toward a small opening between two structures. Without another word, she disappeared inside, leaving the traveler confused. He waited a moment, unsure if he should follow, but the rain began to fall harder and the wind grew stronger. He had no choice. He stepped toward the opening, careful not to make any sudden movements. Inside, it was quieter than he had expected. The sound of the storm outside was muffled by the walls, and the air smelled faintly of wood smoke and dried herbs. He glanced around and saw that it was a living space, simple but organized. There were mats on the floor, bundles of blankets, and small containers for water and food. The traveler felt a mixture of relief and nervousness. He knew he was in someone else's home, and in a culture he did not understand. Every movement he made could be taken the wrong way. As he moved forward, he accidentally stepped on a small mat. The sound made someone gasp. He turned and saw the young woman standing behind him, her face flushed with a mixture of fear and anger. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly but firmly. "This is private." The traveler's heart pounded. He realized he had crossed a boundary he did not even know existed. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't know. I was just looking for shelter from the storm. I didn't mean to intrude." The woman looked at him for a long moment. Then she spoke again, her voice calmer now but still firm. "It is not only about the shelter. There are rules here. You cannot see things you are not meant to see." The traveler nodded, trying to show understanding. "I understand," he said. "I will not look again. I promise." She seemed to consider this for a moment, then motioned for him to sit on a small mat a short distance away from her. He complied, careful to keep his eyes lowered and his body still. As he sat there, he tried to make sense of what had happened. He had seen her, though accidentally, in a private moment. In his world, this might have seemed like a small mistake, but here, he realized, it had serious meaning. The rules were different, and honor was treated with a kind of seriousness he had never experienced. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, a mixture of fear and respect. Outside, the storm raged on, and the sound of rain against the wooden walls made the space feel even smaller. The traveler's mind raced. He did not know what would happen next. He did not know how the community would react, or whether he could explain himself. But he also knew that panicking would not help. He had to remain calm, respectful, and aware of every gesture and word. After a few tense minutes, the young woman returned with a small bowl of food and a cup of water. She set them down in front of him without saying much. "Eat," she said simply. "You will need your strength. We will speak later." The traveler thanked her quietly and began to eat, his hands slightly trembling. Each bite reminded him that he was dependent on the kindness of people he did not know, in a place where mistakes could have serious consequences. As he ate, he tried to remember everything he had learned so far. He recalled the brief glance of her expression when she first saw him, the way the elders might react if they found out, and the unspoken rules that seemed to govern every action in this settlement. He realized that he would need to be extremely careful from this point on. One wrong move, one word spoken incorrectly, could make the situation far worse. By the time he had finished eating, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. The young woman looked at him again, her eyes searching his face. "You are lucky it was a storm," she said. "Otherwise, you might not have found this place. But even now you must understand, what has happened cannot be ignored. There are rules for everyone, even for strangers." The traveler nodded. "I understand," he said. "Please tell me what I can do to make things right." The young woman seemed to consider this, then nodded slightly. "For now, wait here," she said. "I will speak to the elders. Then we will know what must happen next. Do not try to leave. That could make things worse." The traveler agreed, feeling the tension in his chest ease just a little. He realized that he had entered a world where every action mattered, where honor and tradition were more important than anything he had known. He did not yet understand all the rules, but he was willing to learn. As the storm began to pass and the sun peeked through the clouds, the traveler sat quietly, thinking about the strange turn of events that had brought him here. One small mistake, one moment of misfortune, had changed his life completely. He did not know what the future held, but he knew he had to face it with respect, courage, and patience. In that quiet room, surrounded by the smell of wood and rain, he waited, realizing that sometimes the most important lessons come in the most unexpected ways. To respect your people and your ways. The rest of the day was quiet. The traveler spent time observing the community, noticing small but meaningful details. Children played in the dirt, laughing and chasing one another, yet they knew not to enter the adults' spaces without permission. Women prepared food, carefully measuring ingredients and respecting the order of their tasks. Men worked on building or repairing structures, their movements precise and deliberate. The traveler realized that every action had a purpose, every rule was connected to survival, respect, and tradition. When evening came, the elders called him once more. They did not speak harshly but presented him with a choice. He could remain under the guidance of the community, learning their ways and respecting their customs, or he could leave immediately, knowing that doing so might bring dishonor to himself and the young woman. The traveler understood that leaving could be seen as an insult or a refusal to accept responsibility. He looked at the young woman, whose eyes were calm but serious, and nodded. "I will stay," he said quietly. "I will follow your guidance and learn from your wisdom." The elders seemed satisfied. "Then you will begin learning at sunrise," the eldest said. You will observe, listen, and participate in our daily tasks. Honor is not given. It is earned through understanding and respect. That night the traveler slept on a simple mat, thinking about everything that had happened. He reflected on the storm, on the accident, and on the weight of the customs he had witnessed. He realized that he had entered a world far different from his own, where rules were woven into the very fabric of life. It was a world that demanded humility, patience, and careful observation. He did not yet know all the ways of this community, but he was determined to learn. The next morning, the young woman led him through the settlement once more, explaining small but important rules. "Do not touch the fire without permission," she said. "Do not take food from the containers without asking. And always show respect when speaking to the elders or the adults in our community." The traveler listened carefully, repeating each instruction in his mind. "I understand," he said. "I will follow these rules." She nodded. "Good. You will also help with tasks. Cleaning, gathering wood, preparing meals. Actions are how respect is shown, not just words." Over the next several days, the traveler worked alongside the community. He learned to carry water carefully, to stack wood in a way that would not disturb the balance of the settlement, and to prepare simple meals according to their traditions. At first he struggled, making small mistakes that drew quiet corrections from the young woman or the elders. But each mistake taught him something new, and slowly he began to feel a part of the rhythm of daily life. The young woman watched him closely during this time. She could see his efforts and his willingness to learn. Though the memory of the initial accident still hung between them, a sense of trust began to grow. She spoke to him when appropriate, offering guidance and answering questions about customs he did not yet understand. Though their words were careful and deliberate, there was a growing understanding between them. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low over the horizon, the eldest approached the traveler. "You have worked hard and shown respect," he said. "But you must also understand the deeper meaning of what happened. Honor is not only about rules. It is about trust, responsibility, and the way each person's actions affect others. You will need to carry this understanding with you, not just here, but wherever life takes you." The traveler nodded solemnly. "I understand," he said. "I will carry it with me." The young woman, standing nearby, added softly, "It is not easy to live by these rules, especially when you come from a world where rules are different. But learning them shows respect, and respect keeps us safe and united." As the days passed, the traveler became more comfortable within the community. He observed celebrations, learned songs and stories, and helped with tasks that were unfamiliar to him. Each day brought new lessons, and he began to see the beauty of a life guided by tradition, honor, and cooperation. He realized that the initial mistake, though frightening, had led him to an understanding he could not have gained anywhere else. At the same time, he also became aware of the unspoken bond forming between him and the young woman. Though their relationship was still defined by respect and caution, there was a quiet understanding growing. They communicated through gestures, glances, and shared tasks, slowly building trust and friendship. Both understood that the past could not be undone, but the present offered a chance to act with integrity and understanding. By the end of the second week, the elders gathered again. "You have learned much," the eldest said to the traveler. "But learning is only the beginning. Respect and honor must be shown in all things, and mistakes, though they can be forgiven, carry lessons that last a lifetime. Remember that your actions reflect not only on yourself, but on those around you." The traveler bowed his head. "I understand," he said. "I will continue to show respect and honor in all I do." The young woman smiled slightly, a small sign of approval and encouragement. Though the situation that had brought him to the community was still serious, she could see that he had grown and that his intentions were genuine. Together they faced the days ahead, aware that life was shaped not just by accidents, but by the way one responded to them. The next morning, the air was cool, and a light breeze carried the scent of wet earth from the storm. The traveler awoke early, as he had begun to do each day, mindful of the routines of the community. Today was different. He had been told the elders wished to meet with him again, and the weight of anticipation pressed heavily on his chest. He had learned much since arriving, but he knew that understanding the customs fully was one thing. Gaining the elders' approval was another. As he followed the young woman to the meeting space, he noticed the elders already gathered, sitting in a circle of worn mats. Their faces were serious, and their eyes were focused on him in a way that made him feel both nervous and aware of the responsibility he carried. This was a moment of judgment, not out of anger but out of care for the community and the traditions that had guided their lives for generations. The eldest spoke first, his voice calm but commanding. "We have observed your actions over the past days," he said. "You have worked, you have listened, and you have followed guidance. But an incident has occurred that cannot be ignored. It has caused concern within the community, and we must consider the proper way to restore balance and honor." The traveler lowered his head, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I know," he said quietly. "I accept responsibility. I have tried to follow your rules and learn your ways." The eldest continued. "Intentions matter, but so do consequences. When you entered our settlement and witnessed what you were not meant to see, it was not merely a personal mistake. It affected the honor of the young woman, her family, and the trust we place in each member of our community. These things are serious." The young woman, standing near the edge of the circle, nodded. Her eyes were steady, but there was a trace of anxiety. She understood that the elder's decision would impact not only the traveler, but herself and her family. "I know he did not mean harm," she said softly, "but rules exist for a reason. We must find a solution that respects both tradition and fairness." Another elder, a woman with long, dark hair streaked with gray, spoke next. "We live by rules that are older than any of us. They are not meant to punish but to protect. Honor, respect, and trust are the foundations of our life. When these are disturbed, even by accident, we must act with wisdom. We cannot act only out of fear or anger." The traveler listened carefully, absorbing every word. He felt the weight of responsibility but also the possibility for understanding. He knew that he had come into a world unlike his own, where traditions were deeply rooted and where mistakes had far-reaching consequences. "I will do whatever is needed," he said. "I wish only to honor your ways and restore respect." The eldest nodded. "Your willingness to learn and follow guidance is noted. But the question remains, how do we restore honor to the young woman and the community while acknowledging that this was an accident?" He paused, looking around at the other elders. "We must decide carefully." The elders discussed quietly among themselves. Their voices were low, but the traveler could sense the seriousness in every word. They spoke of honor, responsibility, and the importance of maintaining trust within the community. They considered the traveler's actions, his behavior since arriving, and the young woman's courage and honesty. After a time, the eldest turned to the traveler. "There is a path forward," he said. "A path that respects our traditions, restores honor, and allows trust to grow again. But it is not easy. You will need to accept guidance, learn deeply, and understand that your choices carry meaning beyond yourself." The traveler's heart pounded. He did not yet know what the path would be, but he knew he would follow it. "I am ready," he said. "I will do what is needed." The eldest gestured toward the young woman. "And you?" he asked. "Do you understand the seriousness of the situation and the role you play in restoring balance?" She nodded. "Yes," she said firmly. "I understand." There was a pause, and then the eldest spoke again. "In our ways, when honor is affected, there must be action that demonstrates respect and responsibility. It is not a punishment, but a choice to restore what has been disturbed. It will require courage, patience, and understanding from both of you." The traveler listened carefully, realizing that the elders were offering him a chance to make things right, not as a form of punishment, but as a way to learn and grow. He understood that in this community, actions spoke louder than words, and every decision had significance beyond the individual. Over the next few hours, the elders explained their proposal. They suggested a path where the traveler would remain in the community under close guidance. He would continue learning, observing, and participating in daily life, showing respect through his actions. This would allow him to understand the culture fully and demonstrate his willingness to honor the traditions he had inadvertently disrupted. The young woman would continue to guide him, helping him navigate the customs and teaching him the values that shaped their community. Their interactions would remain respectful and focused on learning. The elders emphasized that this was not a punishment for either of them, but a responsibility that required care, patience, and honesty. The traveler felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. He understood that the path ahead would be challenging, but it was also an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to show respect. He looked at the young woman, who met his gaze with quiet determination. They did not need to speak. They both understood the weight of the choice before them. The elders concluded the meeting with words of caution and encouragement. "This will not be easy," the eldest said. "You will face challenges, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt. But if you act with respect, honesty, and patience, you will restore balance and trust. And in doing so, you will learn the meaning of honor, responsibility, and the strength of our traditions." The traveler bowed deeply. "I understand," he said. "I am ready to learn and to follow your guidance." The young woman also bowed slightly. "We will do this together," she said softly. "We must be careful, respectful, and patient." In the following days, the traveler's life became even more structured. He woke early, helped with chores, and observed every rule carefully. He learned not only the daily tasks but also the deeper meanings behind them, how each action, no matter how small, contributed to the harmony of the community. He began to understand the wisdom of traditions that had seemed strict at first, but were in fact carefully thought out over generations. The young woman continued to guide him, offering corrections when he made mistakes and encouragement when he succeeded. Their relationship grew quietly, built on trust, respect, and shared effort. Though the initial incident remained a serious matter, the traveler began to feel a sense of belonging, a connection to the people and their way of life that he had never experienced before. One afternoon, the elders called another meeting. "You have shown progress," the eldest said. "You have worked hard, listened carefully, and acted with respect, but the journey is not yet complete. True understanding comes not only from work and observation, but also from reflection and humility. You must continue to learn and act with care in every decision you make." The traveler nodded, understanding the ongoing responsibility he carried. "I will," he said. "I will continue to learn and show respect." The young woman smiled faintly, a sign of approval that encouraged him. She could see that he was sincere, that he truly wanted to understand and honor the community's ways. Together they faced the days ahead, aware that each step mattered, that trust and honor were earned, and that the choices they made now would shape the future. As the sun set over the desert, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, the traveler reflected on how far he had come. From the fear and confusion of the storm to the lessons learned under the guidance of the elders, he had discovered a world where respect, tradition, and honor shaped every action. He realized that mistakes, even serious ones, could be transformed into opportunities for growth, understanding, and connection. The young woman, watching him quietly, understood the same truth. Though the incident had been frightening and serious, it had brought an opportunity for learning and mutual respect. She saw that he had changed, that he was willing to embrace their customs and live with integrity. Together, they prepared for the next chapter of their journey, aware that the future would test them, but also offer lessons that would last a lifetime. The days following the elders' meeting were filled with routine, learning, and careful observation. The traveler had adjusted to life in the community, following the rules with growing understanding. Yet, a quiet tension lingered in the air. Both he and the young woman knew that the elders' final guidance had implied a choice, a path that would affect both their lives deeply. It was a choice that could not be ignored, and each passing day made its weight feel heavier. The traveler woke early one morning, as was his habit, and looked out over the settlement. Children were already playing near the edge of the hills, their laughter carrying across the still cooling desert air. Women prepared food, carefully arranging herbs and grains, while men tended to repairs and firewood. Everything moved with a rhythm he had come to respect and admire. But amid the peaceful sounds of daily life, he could feel the unspoken question looming. What would the choice mean, and how would it shape the rest of his life? The young woman appeared quietly beside him. She carried water in a small container, offering it to him with a nod. "The elders will meet with us today," she said softly. "It is time to understand what must happen. You must listen carefully, and you must think about what you are willing to accept." He nodded, feeling a mixture of nervousness and determination. "I will," he said. "I want to do what is right, even if it is difficult." They walked together to the circle of elders, their steps careful and deliberate. The elders were already seated, their faces calm but focused. There was a quiet intensity in the air, a sense that today's meeting would bring clarity and define the path forward. The traveler felt a knot in his stomach. He had learned much, but he knew that the choice now was not about learning. It was about commitment, responsibility, and honor. The eldest spoke first. "We have observed your behavior and your willingness to follow guidance," he said. "You have learned the customs, shown respect, and acted with patience. But the incident that brought you here has left a mark. The young woman's honor and the balance of our community must be restored fully." The traveler bowed his head. "I understand," he said quietly. "I am ready to accept whatever is needed to show respect and responsibility." The young woman also bowed slightly. "I understand," she said. "I know the importance of this moment, and I am prepared to follow the guidance of the elders." The elders spoke among themselves for a few moments, their voices low and thoughtful. Then the eldest turned to both of them. "In our ways, when honor has been affected, there must be action that restores balance. This is not punishment but a responsibility. Both of you must choose carefully. Refusal is not a solution, for it brings shame and consequences that affect more than yourselves." The traveler swallowed hard. He understood that the choice was serious. It was not simply about him or the young woman. It was about the community, the traditions, and the trust that held everything together. He looked at her, seeing the same mixture of fear and determination reflected in her eyes. Together, they were facing a moment that would define their future. The elders explained the proposed path. The traveler could remain in the community, continuing to learn and work alongside the people, under the guidance of the young woman. By doing so, he would demonstrate his respect for the culture, accept responsibility for the incident, and help restore honor. The young woman, in turn, would share part of her daily life with him, guiding him and teaching him the ways of the community. This choice was meant to restore balance, show mutual responsibility, and allow both of them to live with integrity. The traveler felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. On one hand, this was an opportunity to make things right, to show respect, and to learn deeply. On the other hand, it was a commitment unlike any he had faced before. He would be living in a world completely different from his own, bound by rules and responsibilities that were foreign to him. The decision would shape his life and the young woman's life in ways he could not yet imagine. The young woman spoke quietly, her voice steady but thoughtful. "It will be difficult," she said. "We will have to adjust, respect boundaries, and accept responsibilities. But it is the right path. It restores honor and keeps our community strong." He nodded. "I understand," he said. "I am ready. I want to do what is right." The eldest watched them carefully, his gaze assessing their sincerity. "This is not a decision to take lightly," he said. "It requires patience, humility, and understanding. You will face challenges, misunderstandings, and moments when the path seems too difficult. But your actions will show whether you are truly committed to learning, respecting, and restoring balance." The traveler felt the weight of the words. He knew that this was more than a choice. It was a test of character, responsibility, and integrity. He looked at the young woman again, seeing her determination and quiet strength. She was accepting this path not out of obligation alone, but out of understanding and respect for the traditions that shaped her life. Over the next few days, the traveler and the young woman began the process of adjusting to this new reality. He continued to work, observe, and learn, but now with a deeper sense of purpose. Every action mattered more than ever before. He carried water carefully, prepared food with attention to detail, and participated in community tasks with respect and diligence. The young woman guided him patiently, correcting mistakes and offering encouragement. At the same time, their interactions became more deliberate. They communicated with gestures, careful glances, and quiet words, learning to understand one another while respecting the boundaries set by the elders. Each day, the traveler gained insight into the values of trust, honor, and responsibility. He realized that living in the community was not just about following rules. It was about understanding the deeper meaning behind them. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, painting the sky with gold and red, the traveler sat with the young woman near a small fire. The air was warm, but the quiet of the desert made their conversation feel intimate and serious. "I did not know what to expect when I first arrived," he said quietly. "I was scared, confused, and unsure, but now I understand a little more. I understand the importance of honor, responsibility, and respect." She nodded. "It is not easy," she said. "It takes time to learn and to accept the rules of our world, but you have shown patience and sincerity. That is why the elders allowed this path. You have the chance to make things right and to understand deeply." The traveler looked into the fire, thinking about the journey so far. He realized that the choice they had made, though heavy and frightening, was also an opportunity. It was a chance to grow, to learn, and to build trust. He understood that the path ahead would not be simple, but he was determined to follow it with respect and integrity. In the following days, the traveler and the young woman continued their work and learning. They prepared food, gathered resources, and helped with daily tasks. Their efforts were noticed by the community, and slowly trust began to grow. The elders observed their progress, nodding in approval as they saw respect and responsibility demonstrated through actions, not just words. One afternoon, the eldest called them together once more. "You have accepted the responsibility," he said. "You have shown patience and diligence, but remember, this is only the beginning. Honor is maintained through continued respect, understanding, and care. You must act wisely, speak carefully, and always consider the impact of your actions on others." The traveler bowed deeply. "I understand," he said. "I will continue to learn and to act with respect." The young woman also bowed. "We will do our best," she said. "We will face challenges together and honor the traditions that guide us." As the sun set, the traveler felt a mixture of relief and determination. The choice had been made, and though it brought challenges, it also brought clarity. He had accepted responsibility, embraced learning, and committed to respecting a culture far different from his own. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but he also knew that by acting with sincerity, patience, and humility, he could honor both the young woman and the community that had welcomed him. In the quiet of the evening, as the stars began to appear in the desert sky, the traveler reflected on the journey so far. What had begun as an accident, a moment of fear and misunderstanding, had become a path of learning, respect, and responsibility. The choice they had made was not only about restoring honor but also about growth, understanding, and the quiet strength that comes from accepting responsibility. The young woman, sitting nearby, shared the same reflection. Though the situation had been serious, it had offered an opportunity for trust, mutual respect, and understanding. Together, they faced the days ahead with patience, courage, and a commitment to honor the traditions that shaped their lives. The following weeks passed in a rhythm that the traveler had slowly come to understand. Each day began before sunrise, with tasks that seemed small at first but held greater meaning than he had imagined. He drew water from the nearby stream, gathered wood for fires, prepared meals, and helped repair fences and shelters. Every action had a purpose, and every effort was noticed, not with judgment but with quiet acknowledgement of his willingness to learn and contribute. The young woman continued to guide him, her presence steady and calm. She corrected his mistakes without anger and offered encouragement with patience. Through these shared efforts, a quiet understanding began to grow between them. It was not yet friendship in the way he had known in his old life, nor was it anything romantic. It was a connection rooted in mutual respect, shared responsibility, and the recognition that both were committed to honoring the traditions of her people. The elders watched closely, offering guidance when necessary, but also allowing the two of them space to navigate their new responsibilities. The traveler learned that trust was not given lightly. It had to be earned through consistent actions, humility, and respect. Every time he made a mistake and corrected it, he felt a small step forward, a chance to rebuild not only his own understanding, but also the confidence of the young woman and the community. One afternoon, after completing their morning tasks, the traveler and the young woman sat near the fire, looking out over the hills. The desert stretched endlessly before them, golden in the late afternoon sunlight, dotted with small patches of green where the recent rain had left life in its wake. "I never thought life could move like this," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Everything here has a purpose, every action matters, and every choice carries weight." The young woman nodded. "It is not easy to see at first," she said. "But when you understand, you see that our ways protect the people, the land, and each other. Life is stronger when honor and respect guide our actions." He looked at her, realizing how much he had learned since the day of the storm. He remembered the fear, the confusion, and the weight of the initial accident. That moment had changed everything, and yet it had also opened a path for growth, understanding, and connection. "I am grateful for your guidance," he said sincerely. "I would not have learned any of this without you." She smiled faintly, a quiet acknowledgement of his words. "You have worked hard," she said, "and you have shown respect. That is what matters. Learning is not easy, but it is necessary." As the weeks turned into months, the traveler became a familiar presence in the community. He knew the names of the elders, the routines of the daily tasks, and the rhythm of life in a way that felt natural. The young woman continued to guide him, but now their interactions carried a sense of shared purpose. They spoke with ease about tasks, traditions, and stories of the past. Through shared work and quiet conversations, trust grew steadily between them. The traveler began to understand the deeper lessons of the community. Honor was not a rule imposed from above. It was a living principle that shaped every action, from the way food was prepared to the way fire was handled, to the way words were spoken. Respect was not simply polite behavior. It was a commitment to understanding, protecting, and valuing the lives of others. Responsibility was not just about following instructions. It was about recognizing the consequences of one's actions and making choices that preserved harmony. One day, the elders gathered the community together for a small ceremony. They praised the traveler's efforts, acknowledging his dedication and respect for the traditions he had come to learn. The traveler felt a mix of pride and humility. He understood that this recognition was not for personal glory, but for the actions he had taken to restore trust and honor. It was a reminder that respect and responsibility were visible not only in words, but in deeds. The young woman stood beside him during the ceremony, her presence steady and calm. Though they did not speak during the formal moments, their shared glance conveyed understanding. They had faced fear, uncertainty, and difficult choices together. They had navigated a path defined by tradition, honor, and responsibility. And through it all, they had grown, both individually and in their quiet connection. After the ceremony, the traveler and the young woman worked together to continue daily tasks. They repaired shelters, prepared food, and helped children with small chores. Their interactions were comfortable, a mixture of guidance, learning, and mutual respect. Slowly, the community came to see him not as an outsider, but as someone who had embraced their ways, learned from them, and acted with sincerity. As the seasons changed, the traveler realized how much he had grown. He had entered the community in fear, confused and unsure. But through patience, learning, and respect, he had gained understanding, trust, and a sense of belonging. The young woman had been a steady guide, teaching him not only the practical tasks of daily life, but also the deeper meaning behind each rule, ritual, and action. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, the traveler and the young woman sat quietly by the fire. The desert air was cool and the stars began to appear, shining brightly in the clear sky. "I have learned so much," he said softly, "more than I ever thought possible. Life here is so different from what I knew, and yet I feel at home." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the light of the fire. "You have worked hard and you have shown respect," she said. "That is why you belong here now. Not because of where you came from, but because of the actions you have taken, the lessons you have learned, and the way you have honored our ways." The traveler nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He realized that the initial accident, the moment of fear and misunderstanding, had brought him into a world that challenged him, taught him, and ultimately helped him grow. What had begun as a frightening mistake had become a journey of learning, respect, and quiet connection. In the following months, he continued to live and work alongside the community. His days were filled with tasks, observation, and learning. He became skilled in daily chores, attentive to customs, and careful in every action. The young woman remained a guide and companion, helping him understand the subtleties of the culture and ensuring that he acted in accordance with tradition. Through shared effort and consistent respect, trust grew steadily. The traveler no longer felt like an outsider, and the young woman no longer saw him simply as a visitor. Their connection was built on understanding, shared responsibility, and the recognition that actions, not words alone, determined the respect and honor between people. The elders continued to observe, offering occasional guidance, but allowing the traveler to demonstrate his understanding through actions. Their trust in him grew, and he felt a quiet pride in knowing that he had earned a place within the community. It was not a place of ease or comfort, but a place of learning, growth, and genuine connection. One morning, as the sun rose over the desert, the young woman spoke to him quietly. "You have done well," she said. "You have learned our ways, shown respect, and acted with responsibility. But remember, this is only the beginning. Life will continue to test us, and we must always act with care, humility, and understanding." The traveler nodded. "I understand," he said. "I will continue to learn and to act with respect. I am grateful for everything I have learned and for the guidance you have given me." She smiled faintly. "We have learned together," she said. "This is how trust grows. This is how honor is maintained. This is how we live with each other and with the land." As the day began, they joined the community in their daily work, moving with purpose, care, and attention. Each action, no matter how small, was a reminder of the lessons they had learned and the trust they had built. The traveler felt a quiet sense of belonging, a connection that went beyond words, built on respect, understanding, and shared effort. As the months passed, life in the community became a steady rhythm. The traveler continued to grow in skill, understanding, and confidence. The young woman remained a guide and companion, helping him navigate the subtle rules and traditions that shape daily life. Together, they faced challenges, completed tasks, and maintained the harmony of the community. The traveler knew that the initial accident, the moment that had brought fear and uncertainty, had also brought opportunity, learning, and growth. What had begun as a mistake had transformed into a journey of understanding, trust, and respect. And through it all, he had come to appreciate the strength, wisdom, and depth of a culture that valued honor, responsibility, and community above all else. In the quiet evenings, as the desert sky filled with stars, the traveler reflected on his journey. He had entered a world unfamiliar, faced difficult choices, and learned lessons that would stay with him for a lifetime. He had gained understanding, earned trust, and discovered a sense of belonging that he had never known before. And through it all, he had done so with respect, humility, and the guidance of a young woman who had helped him see the meaning behind every rule, every tradition, and every action.